Okay, I think we are live now.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, good evening, everyone. So we have with us Professor Rahul Shukla. He's the convener of XAT 2025, and he has been the convener of XAT like last year and this year. So this is the second time he's acting as a convener of XAT 2025. And a hearty welcome to our channel, sir. And hope you will be able to share some insights to our students on how to prepare for XAT, and then what exactly are you expecting out of the XAT examination.
My pleasure, Shikanji. It's always a pleasure to come on this channel. Last year also I came, and definitely it's always a nice feeling to share inputs with the candidates who are prepping for all the grade B schools. And definitely, if they are choosing that, I would be very happy to answer any questions. So I'm open to any questions, any doubts, any clarifications, if it can help you in improving your performance in that. So, what do you, Shikant sir? If you want to ask anything, I'm ready. I guess you're on mute, sir.
So let us start with XAT preparation, right? So students are coming fresh out of CAT examination, and there has been a pattern change in the CAT. So the general feedback was that the level of difficulty has decreased for CAT, right? So given this background and then backdrop of the students, how can they fine tune their preparation for CAT, and how can they actually focus on CAT preparation?
Oh, that's a very good news that the difficulty level of CAT has reduced, right? So that's amazing. And I guess we are also focusing on the same thing. Last year, we tried to do our own difficulty analysis of the questions which were attempted, which were not attempted by majority of candidates. And we have tried to, this year, we have tried to tone down those questions which were not attempted. We want students to attempt as many questions as they can, right? So when it comes to difficulty level, you would have seen that from last few years, we have actually, instead of, I will not say that we have tried to reduce the difficulty, but we have tried to reduce the ambiguity, right? Paper, we don't want to make a paper so easy that person who has not prepared, he is as good as the person who has prepared. And we also don't want to make it that difficult that a person who is very well prepared also finds it challenging. So it should be of a level where people with little preparation and people with great preparation all can come together and solve that paper. So this is what we have tried to take care of. When it comes to difficulty level, we have tried to reduce the ambiguity as much as possible. We have also tried to change a few things in paper. I'm sure you would have heard of our new XAT 2025 overview. We have removed the essay section from the main exam for a simple reason. Students are already under a lot of pressure, and we don't want to force them to write towards the end when they are done with the three sections plus GK. So we have moved it to our interview because essays otherwise also used only for XLRI Delhi and XLRI Jamshedpur. So that has been moved. That is one thing we have done. And in general knowledge also, we have reduced the number of questions. Earlier there were 25 questions for GK. Now we have brought that down to 20 questions, out of which 12 will be about current affairs and 8 questions will be about static GK. And there also we are not trying to test something which is really difficult or not so very popular. We would try to bring those questions which people should know on a day-to-day basis, the information which keeps getting spread, and if you have kept your ears and eyes open, that information is known to you too, right? When it comes to the preparation of XAT, and because students are coming after CAT, I would say that if you look at our sections, the quantitative aptitude or verbal ability, they both are somewhere related to the quantitative aptitude and verbal ability of CAT, right? I will not say exactly the same, but almost on the same lines. So if we are prepared for CAT well, that preparation can smartly, it can fed into your XAT preparation. That's one thing. The only section where we have differentiated ourselves from other exams is that we have a decision making section, right? Which, if you have seen from last many years, people used to say that this students or candidates used to believe that it was very subjective. But you would have realized that from last many years, earlier there were two very close options. We have removed that distraction also. There is one always a standout option. And if you have solved previous year's question papers, you can easily spot that particular answer which stands out of the five options given. So my suggestion would be that you carry on with the same preparation with CAT with a few modifications. Obviously, in that we try to understand if students can apply that knowledge. So focus on application. At the same time, when it comes to decision making, please go through our previous year's question papers and try to check which of the options out of those five options stands out. And if you can relate that option with the context, you actually will be able to spot the right answer. So if you do that, I'm sure you will do wonders in that as well as you're going to do in CAT.
Okay. If I am to compare CAT with XAT, right? So CAT has individual sectional timings, and XAT does not have any individual sectional timing. So what should be the strategy of student like in attempting XAT exam?
Okay, so see, because I'm not a part of CAT team, so I don't know the exact rationale behind why a particular time is given and you cannot move from one section to other. But I can talk of XAT because I run XAT and I know what goes into XAT. The idea is when we give our candidates the liberty from moving from one section to another section. Actually, the idea behind it is that if somebody is very much comfortable with verbal ability and logical reasoning, and the person believes that the person can finish that particular section in, for instance, 30 minutes itself, so that person can directly start with that, right, with your comfort zone. So you finish that comfort zone with the questions of your comfort zone, and then you move to some to the zone where you are, if not uncomfortable, where you find things challenging. So you have enough time now. So it helps you in actually allocating time. Sometimes questions are, they require more time. So when you have this freedom of moving from one section to another section, and you know your limitations in a particular section, you can start with a section you find easy and finish well within the given time. So that is one difference between us and the other exams. Another thing which we try to take care of in XAT is that we ask application based questions mostly in our quant. And in, if you take the case of our verbal ability, we try to ask interpretive questions. So when you have to answer the application based questions, or you have to answer the interpretive questions, you require a lot of thinking, and thinking wastes your time if it's an exam and you have a particular given time. So we give more time than other exams because we are not testing your speed, right? We are not trying to test how quickly you can do. If you are analytical and you are taking more time, is fine with us. So my suggestion would be, take your time, what you are comfortable with, and you can do really fast. You do finish it, and then devote time to those sections where you take time. Right? Taking time doesn't mean that our candidate, those who take time, they are not great. It's not like that at all. Sometimes some people are highly meticulous. Sometimes they are very diligent in taking a call. So they require time. And we want them to use the given time for arriving at a very informed choice. So there we are different, and we are trying students to use more of their thinking process. So that is where I guess we differentiate from them. General knowledge is something where we are definitely different from CAT. They don't assess it, we assess it, but our general knowledge is actually general awareness. It's not hardcore GK where we try to ask some facts. Mostly we avoid giving questions which require you to recall particular fact, right? In current affairs, obviously this can happen, but anything which is happening in last one, which has happened last one, which is happening currently, if you take care of it, just if you have read some newspapers, heard news, or you have watched some for instance bites on TV, that information, if it is already known across, you may be able to answer if you have kept your ears and eyes open. So I guess you should not get worried about that much. But yes, definitely don't ignore that section, because at XLRI, be it Delhi or Jamshedpur, we use that scores to prepare that score plus your essay score to prepare the merit list. So for XLRI, those two scores are important, both GK and essay. Essay we will take care of, and we will invite you for our GDPI process.
So you have mentioned about scores that XLRI considers, right? So what will be the cutoffs, like, let's say, for each section of that, and then how to clear those cutoffs and then maximize the scoring?
See, this is a very difficult question, Shikanji, to answer, because it's all relative, right? If, for instance, lots of students do well in all the sections, so obviously the cutoff of all the sections will go up, right? If lots of students don't do that great, then cutoffs will come down. So it's very difficult to comment on it. We can never predict what would cutoff be, but we always have some weightages. We try to use those weightages. We have given, for instance, some weightages to people, for instance, who are not from engineering background, some weightages, right? Like they should get some opportunities. But obviously, we at XLRI we try to balance and we try to encourage those who can come not only on merit, but we follow, we stick to the idea of like equity, and we try to help everybody. So I would say that difficult to currently comment upon, difficult to comment upon because it's all relative. But again, it would depend upon the question paper and how many students are attempting, how many questions in each section will help us define what would be the sectional cutoff and also the overall cutoff.
So you have touched upon equity and inclusivity, right? So is there any additional weightage given for any specific category of students or applicants, let's say women or non-engineering sciences or
So
any?
this, if you look at the at our past, we have tried to accommodate people who are from non-engineering background. Sometimes women are also given some weightages, but at the end of the day, I would be very honest with you that XLRI respects merit. Merit is something which we respect to the core, right? If somebody has done well, then obviously there are chances that person will be able to make it to XLRI. Like we have 100% merit based admissions process. But yes, those who are from the backgrounds, like for instance, for a non-engineer to compete with an engineer sometimes becomes difficult. So there is some variation in cutoffs for the people who are, for instance, from non-engineering background, or sometimes people, women who also who are from non-engineering background, because for them, see, if you look at the structure of our paper, be it verbal or be it QT, so engineers are good with these things, right? They are so I'm not saying that because they are good so they should suffer. Obviously they should not, but somewhere because we all want everybody to come along, it's very challenging task, and it's like walking on a tightrope because we have to take care of our engineers also and our non-engineers also. So we try to do justice, but you know we understand that sometimes somewhere some values get compromised, right? Like for instance, some, if there is some low merit for somebody, then there is somebody who loses on something that happens, but we try to avoid as much as possible. That's why we have increased the number of people we call for interviews. Instead of in a particular quota, we try to do it, right? So that more people are coming, because at the end of the day, merit is what matters at XLRI.
I think that is good to hear. So let us touch upon. So you were convener last year also for XAT, and are there any learnings from XAT from your experience last year that you want to put in or implement this year?
Correct. So I will tell you, like this is what I told in the beginning also. For instance, if you take our test itself, last year we tried to keep the our question paper more. We were tried to bring clarity, right? That's what was our objective. So one section where we realized students struggled was all the sections were smooth except for QT. There was some section, there some were some questions where students had to read a lot, and because we tried to explain everything thinking that people without maths background will also attempt, so let's explain things to details, right? So that they can also understand what we are trying to assess, because maths is not maths of high level. It's like plus 2, the 10th plus business maths, a few concepts of plus 2 are there, so anybody can attempt. But still, to bring clarity, we expanded our questions. So this year we have tried to reduce those lengthy questions, we still without cutting down on the clarity part. So that has been taken care of. I've already told you we try to do difficulty analysis, and the questions which were not attempted by many students, such questions we will try to avoid this year. We want students to attempt as many questions. So questions, the kind of questions which were attempted, we are trying to bring those questions. But I would not say that we are trying to somewhere compromise with the quality of that, because that has a particular level, will not compromise for sure. But we will try to bring more clarity, so that if you are prepared well, you should not get disappointed by looking at our paper, and you should be able to attempt. You should come out of the exam hall and say the paper was doable and I enjoyed it.
Okay, so the XAT is itself is a very long examination, right? So how does the candidate sustain his concentration during such a long exam?
So I would say that take that as a as a test match. Like currently, say India is playing so well today itself; they have defeated Australia. So it's like a long process, but it's not like you're under pressure. You enjoy questions, right? You take your time, reflect on them, then arrive at. But again, plan well, that for each section you will devote a particular amount of time, right? Uh, if you're using a lot of time on a particular section, remember that the other sections will actually suffer. So suggestion would be that distribute your time and spend enough time on each question. Divide your time in such a way that, or you know delegate time to each section in such a way that sections don't get compromised. But while solving, you think about the questions. And I would suggest that each candidate should try to understand what we are asking. Don't jump to the question right away. Try to understand why this question has been asked. What are they trying to assess? Because in verbal, we try to get into interpretation, and in QT, we try to get into application. And decision making again is logical thinking, right? So normally people get confused. It's a better version of logical thinking in a situational context, or in a context of business where you have to use logic to arrive at a decision. So my suggestion would be, when you have enough time, spend that time to understand, try to question the thought process of the person who has created this question, and then try to choose your answer. That would help. So you don't have to get worried. Don't get don't develop anxiety while looking at questions. Oh, this question I don't know. If you think, try to understand, you can easily understand what we are trying to check in our questions. So your objective should be to reflect more while solving questions. At the same time, also try to anticipate what this person is expecting from me in this question, right? Or not only anticipate, try to understand. If you catch that, reflect well, you may be able to understand what we are looking forward to. Always in alternatives, also try to understand which alternative is trying to help you answering the question which the person who has created question has raised. If that particular option is answering that question, obviously that is the right answer. And even if it's a decision making section, there's always one option which stands out. My suggestion would be, for decision making, don't use your assumptions. You have knowledge of a particular problem, don't bring that knowledge to solve this problem. Stick to the context, stick to the data given in the context. Use that information and try to arrive at a conclusion. If you use the outside knowledge, I was working in this organization, so I did, so let me do that, then you may go wrong. It's like solving the problem for another person, but not bringing your biases in that. If you keep your biases aside or your understanding aside, try to understand in that context, you may be able to solve decision making also. So that is why I'm saying, please solve the question papers of previous years when it comes to decision making. It will help you understand what we are looking forward to. As a critical thinker, as a problem solver, try to understand what is this person trying to ask in every question. That will help.
So you have mentioned how to prepare for decision making detail, right? So how can one prepare, let's say, for VALR or QT, say each one of those sections?
So VALR, I would say that see, different coaching centers or different training institutes share different types of techniques. Huh? I will tell you my personal way of solving verbal section. I read the passage and I try to understand what the passage is trying to say without looking at the passage. You need to create mental notes. What does it say? So instead of looking at the passage and thinking, just reflect on what it is trying to say. Like there was a passage we gave on bullshitting, if you remember, 3-4 years back, right? So what is bullshitting? So normally bullshitting is, no, people believe is actually something very random, but bullshitting is an academic term. There is a paper on it, and from that paper only that particular abstract came. Now bullshitting means what? Then it says that bullshitting is different from lies. At least liar knows the objective, that I am lying so that I want to achieve this. Bullshitter doesn't know. He keeps saying things without realizing whether they are true or false, because the objective of bullshitter is to distract you. So when you reflect on it, okay, this article is talking about bullshitter from this perspective, and this is how bullshitter is different from liar, you have to do some kind of mental analysis and create mental notes. And then you come to questions, you will be able to answer questions better over looking at a passage and finding the answers. because passage answer questions don't come directly from the passage, they are based on interpretation. So that is for verbal ability. When it comes to QT, my suggestion would be, again, we avoid giving at XLRI or our XAT exam, we avoid giving the formula based questions. There may be a few. It's not that we don't give completely the formula, but there you may find a few formula based questions. But mostly questions are about applications, so that even those who don't know formulas can also solve the questions. That is the objective of giving such questions. So try to understand what the question is asking, or the particular question is asking you to come up with. Try to understand that. And even when you're solving the QT part, I would say, again, reflect on what the person who has created a question is asking from me. Don't jump to conclusion. Sometimes, there is something called mirroring effect. You already know some information about the similar question, and you see a similar question here, so you think that, okay, I have solved such a question, so let me use that understanding. I would say, no, don't do that. Try to understand what is this question asking. If you can understand that, I'm sure you would be good. So application is a focus for QT, and interpretation is a focus for verbal.
So you have mentioned about verbal and QT. So how does one prepare for logical reasoning or data interpretation kind of questions in that?
So I would again say, so for us, LR is different. For CAT, LR is different. Our
Yes.
LR actually is verbal related, right? So if you look at our verbal related logical reasoning, it's again majorly about interpretations, right? So there is first level of interpretation, second level of interpretation, third level of interpretation. We don't get into second and third level of interpretation because subjectivity creeps in. Our as for instance, a team which prepares questions, their subjectivity will get into second level. But definitely, first level interpretation is important. You need to know, at least try to understand what is this passage trying to say, or what is this author trying to say, or in this passage, what is it trying to say. If you can draw the interpretation, don't get into getting, extending the meaning of what you are understanding. That actually will put you in a problem. So try to understand what they are trying to say. Keeping that in mind, if you answer, you would do well, right? That's how I solve. Again, coming back to the data interpretation. Data interpretations also are kept simple, right? We have tried to take care of it this year also, that we will try to keep the data interpretation simple. But again, you will have to use your thinking skills. So think before you jump to any conclusion. Try to understand. So the key is, be it QT, verbal, DM, any of our sections, you need to think before you attempt, because and that's why we are giving you enough time. We are not testing your speed at all. We want you to understand the question and then try to pick the answer. That is what we are expecting, and that is most important thing in the in the business world these days, because there are lots of softwares which have come, they can do thinking also on your part, right? And now there are online platforms also which are doing that, right? And that this generative AI is actually thinking on people's behalf as well. So the thinking skill has become very important, and it would be a unique skill in future. Can our people think in a unique way, in a critical way, in an analytical way? So that is what we are trying to test.
So you have mentioned that you're not looking for speed rather than understanding, right? So can we say that it will be very difficult for a candidate to attempt all 100% of the questions given the time frame?
Again, I said that we are not testing speed doesn't mean that speed is not important, because there is a timeline, right? You have to finish your paper in 2 hours 50 minutes, right? That's what is the time allocated for the 3 sections. So I would say that very judiciously decide how much time you will invest on each section, and if you are jumping over that time, please switch to another section, right? So don't decide on questions beforehand, and don't decide on how much time you will invest. Like, okay, I have to invest 40% time on this. Look at the paper, try to understand if the paper, for instance, verbal looks doable to you, so start with verbal. But there should be maximum time you can invest. But if you can finish in minimum time, leave it, then go to the section where you find you will require more time. So judiciously decide after looking at the question paper. Don't go with this preconceived notion that this is how I will divide, like, because there are 3 sections, I will decide one third, one third, one third. Sometimes some people are too good in, for instance, QT, they will finish the QT in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, right? So it also depends upon that. So I would say that definitely time is important. But when I say we are not testing a speed, the idea is that we are not putting pressure on you to solve a problem in a minute or in 30 seconds, 60 seconds. That's not what is the objective, right? At the same time, we want you to be accurate. We want you to do well. And I would say that nobody can do 100% paper, right? Because negative marking is there. So they are also cautious. Our negative marking allows you to sometimes it dissuades you from attempting more questions. At the same time, it forces you also to attempt more questions, right? So if you're making one mistake, you will lose 0.25. But if you're not attempting beyond 8, you will lose 0.10. So at that, we believe that students should attempt questions, and if they know, they should definitely attempt. So I would say that overspending time in a particular section may cost a few questions in the other section. So judiciously decide. Also, should know your strengths, which is very important, right? What you're good at, try to do that as early as possible, and then move to the other section where you require more time. And there also, when I say you require more time, allocate time before you start attempting the question. How much time I want to spend, so that the third section doesn't get compromised because of this section.
So you have mentioned about the negative marking for unattempted questions, right? So that is point one or 8 questions, I think, right? So
Yes.
how exactly is it calculated? Let's say I get a negative marking of, let's say, minus 1.5 for unattempted questions. How will this be divided across each
So
section?
I will. This is something which I would not like to discuss here, but I would tell you that we have a team, right? Which actually is dedicated to this part. What they do is they keep a track of how many questions are attempted, right? And how many questions were wrong, and how many questions were unanswered. Based on that, we try to arrive at what marks will you get for a particular section. But there's a team which meticulously does this job, because we know that candidates put a lot of effort, and there should be no injustice to any candidate who is coming for our or sitting through our exam. So that we definitely take care of. So, and good thing is that since I have taken over this office, we have not made any error in such calculations, because I don't interfere in the team's work. But at the same time, I keep a watch and I keep telling there should be no errors. And even if you look at our question paper, last year it was error free question paper, and I promise this year also it would be error free. We are doing a lot of hard work to keep our question paper error free, no mistakes, no problems, because we know that for us it's just one question or two questions, but for our candidates it would be, for instance, the entire year it would get compromised. And the kind of efforts these days students are putting, I guess I need to salute them, because 24/7 they are busy. The kind of efforts they are putting, the kind of anxiety they are going through. I don't want our candidates to suffer at all. So definitely there's a team, but I have already told you that we keep a track of these three items: attempted questions, unattempted questions, and wrong questions. Based on that, we calculate or compute the score for each section.
Okay. So if we just take a look at XLR and its selection criteria, right? So who is an ideal candidate for XLRA, and like uh,
So this is a good question, but actually, not only XLRI, our other associate schools also are a part of this discussion. We try to do last year also we tried to do this discussion. So suggestion would be that if you want to be an ideal candidate, not only for XLRI, any B school, you should be very good at thinking on the toes. All the B schools want those candidates who can think on the move. And currently, in any organization, they look forward to those candidates who can pivot, who can think on the move, right? Who can handle ambiguity. Those who are not worried about what they don't know, right? They can actually create knowledge in the given scenario with limited resources. They can maneuver. So when it comes to XLRI candidate or any other candidate who is ideal for any B school, mostly schools try to understand if the person is good at critical thinking skills, the person is good at problem solving skills, the person is good at handling ambiguity, person is good human being, right? Person is aware of his or her value system, the person is also you know kind to others, the person fits into the culture of the school that person is applying, right? So it's always important to understand what kind of organization or school you are applying to, what are the values of that organization. Can you relate your background with the values? If you talk about that, it helps. And the schools, they are also actually interested in those candidates who can relate their background with what institute does, right? Even if you're choosing a program, try to relate it to how it is connected with your background or what you have studied. If you do that, it makes you an ideal candidate. So at XLRI also, we look forward to people who are good with critical thinking, problem solving, high on integrity, good human beings, love to contribute, want to give back to the community, don't believe in discrimination. So I guess these are the things we require if we want to make our country great, right? So that's what we look forward to. And we align our selection process with, I don't know like how to put it up, but then we try to align our selection process with the national education policy, which has of late come, right? We try to contribute to nation building, so we try to understand what are the goals of our our nation, because we want to make our nation great, right? And XLRI is contributing to nation building for 75 years, and government also has expectations from us. So we try to align what the nation expects from a B school like XLRI, and in a best way how we can contribute. So if a candidate is ideal for helping us in making the nation great, obviously that person is the best choice for us.
So one common question that students ask is that can we crack CAT in this 1 month time? What should be
That
ZAT? Sorry so much.
no
So
issues.
can we crack ZAT in this 1 month that we have?
I guess yes. See, if you have already prepared for CAT, right? Because it was yesterday only, right? If you have already prepared for CAT, obviously you have good understanding of how to handle verbal and QT. Only section which can worry you is decision making, which is not there. I've already advised, if you solve our question papers of last 10 years of decision making, you will develop an understanding of what we are looking forward to, right? And it's also a logical way of solving a scenario, business scenario where a problem has happened. But again, avoid your biases, right? There is past knowledge you are carrying. Use that knowledge, but don't use it directly so that it influence the context. Use the information given the context, get guided by your knowledge you carry, experience you carry, and then look for which option stands out and helps in solving that problem. So decision making is somewhere you have to be cautious. For that, solve the question papers or listen to videos available on YouTube also. Lots of our students have put videos on how to handle decision making, but most of them say if you solve question papers of previous years, they are enough for you to develop an understanding of how to handle decision making section. So I guess if you you practice well, it's easy actually. Not 1 month, at least you can actually prepare for XAT in 10 to 15 days with the kind of preparation you've already done for other exams.
So maybe we can take some questions from candidates, right? So some from students. So a few students are asking how can gap year uh, can be justified or can it spoil their profile?
See, it's actually something which students are worried about. See, one thing I would always suggest, those who are preparing for next years and all, it's always a good idea to continue working and preparing. It's always a good idea, right? Because if somebody has taken a gap, is coming for a PI, and a person without a gap coming for a PI, actually the person without a gap or who is continuing his job or her job is coming for a PI always has an upper hand, because it shows that they can balance between their work and their preparation. So it's always a good idea not to quit your job for preparation, right? If you can. But if you, for instance, for many it's not easy, they find it challenging to work also, because it's not just about because they're not good at working, it's also because of the kind of work they do. Some companies demand a lot of work from them, and tend to prepare for competitive exams becomes very challenging. So there is no choice but to quit. So if you have already quit your job, I would say there is no problem that way also. People with gap years get admitted to places like XLRI. There are students with gaps. They are here also at XLRI, right? How to justify your gap? For that, you have to do something. right? Like for instance, those who are preparing for CAT or XAT or any other competitive test for P schools, don't just prepare, simultaneously keep doing something. At least do some courses, or there are so many online platforms these days, Coursera, or you just do some courses or learn some skills in this particular period so that you can justify. At the end of the day, introverts know that you are preparing for the entrance exams. But if you can complement that with saying that I was preparing, for sure I quit my job because my job was very demanding for preparation, but I kept doing these 5 6 things. And those who have gaps and already taken the exams or are about to take XAT, for instance, in January, you always have 1.5 months time in between. In between, if you can do 2 or 3 courses, right, at least certificate courses, so you bring them to the table, it helps you. It's not about your gap, it's about your attitude. If you have a right attitude and you used your time judiciously, meaningfully, obviously you're a good candidate. I know a girl, she was my student. It's one case, so you might say it's a very subjective example. She prepared for UPSC for 5 years, right? And she joined us. And because I teach in the first term itself, so she came to me and she said, Rahul sir, what should I do? Then we sat and discussed. She was the first girl to get placed in one of the reputed FMCG firms because the way she answered questions, she was UPSC aspirant, so she had a very good understanding of what she studied about Indian polity, economics, and she brought those things in her discussion with the HR who came here for the summer internships. So that HR got so impressed. See, UPSC is like a big thing where so many students appear. And it's not easy, like, and they all are equally good. So many people, because of luck or because of some bad day, something bad on that day, they could not make it. But doesn't mean that they are bad, right? So she tried to prove that in her interview, and HR got so impressed that she got the first offer from that particular company. And currently, that girl is already working with that company because they gave her a PPO also, right? Pre-placement offer. So she finished her and went and joined. So this keeps happening. So gap is not a problem. But again, I would say don't compromise if you can manage your work with your job or with your preparation. If your work is somewhere interfering with your preparation, it's very demanding, then obviously there is no choice but you will have to take break. But yes, people with gaps come to B schools.
So there is one question on from Nikita. She's asking, can you please share the breakup of different components like GDPI, XAT score, WorkX, past TechAts in final selection?
So I will be very honest that again changes from year to year, right? Every year there is a revision. There's a committee which sits and tries to prepare that weightage schedule. But I would say that always at XLRI, it's not the weightage, it's always the candidate, right? You would have seen in the past, if you look at our alumni or our students who are already working in companies very successfully, you would see that people with decent, you know, undergrad marks or 10th 12th marks have been able to make it to XLRI, and not so decent also have been able to make it to XLRI, right? Or people who had very great ZAT score have also been selected, and those who had on a lower side of cutoff, they also could make it to XLRI. XLRI never believes in, as a school, we are very much committed to taking the best candidates. When we say best, the people who can bring a difference when they go to work in the industry, right? We are a responsible B school. So I would say that don't get worried about how we distribute marks, right? Obviously, that has a major role to play. There is always a higher weightage of XAT. But at the end of the day, how you perform in your interview when you come and talk to us, that is what is more important for XLRI. If you perform well, you can prove that you will be a very promising candidate and you will make a difference. You are amazing, but you have done exceptionally well, but you are actually not able to connect with what we are expecting and what you want to deliver, and you are struggling with thinking, and you don't have a clarity on your future goals, then obviously some interviewers will not appreciate that. So this distribution is not important, but proving yourself is more important. And I would say at XLRI, we look forward to those candidates who can prove themselves really smartly in the interview processes, right? But yes, If you fall in that category of cutoffs of our ZAT scores or ZAT percentile, you have a chances, even if you're from a lower side, you have a chances that you can make it to a place like XLRI.
So we got a question on like what are the important topics in quant.
So for that, please refer to our ZAT overview. We every year publish ZAT 20. So last year we started it. Last year also we published ZAT 2024 overview. This year also we have published. So please go through. We have kept all the details over there.
Great. So I
Right?
think we'll share the link with the students.
Yeah, please. Actually, one more thing, which I guess which I can see the comment on my other computer as well. Somebody asked about poem, right? I guess which is what worries students a lot when it comes to verbal section. I'm sure you might know
Correct, correct.
English, right? So please don't get intimidated by a poem. See, the objective of keeping a poem in a exam like XAT is that we want to appreciate all kinds of readings, right? Reading a passage is always interesting and informative, but we live in a society where we study prose, we study poetry, we listen to music, we also build bridges, right? Everything is important, right? It's not just that this is only important and that is not important. So we want students to appreciate poems as well. But again, honestly speaking, we don't do justice to poems. Our poems questions are very logical, so it's like an RC only, right? Technically poem should be actually felt, they should not be analyzed. But we it's a kind of an RC also, a shorter version of RC, but at the same time you have to use logic to solve those poems, I would say. But idea is that even if one person gets triggered by our poems to read poems, at least we have been able to do something, right? We have been able to spread some awareness about poetry as well. I'm sure many of you appreciate poetry, but that was the goal of bringing in poems. But at the end of the day, it has actually become an RC only, right?
So maybe final question. So what are the good resources to prepare for GK?
Good resources for to prepare for GK. That's a difficult question because I don't want people to get into books to read about GK, right? I would say that from last 1 year, whatever has happened when it comes to current affairs, just skim through, right? Last 1 year is a zone. Just skim through, just try to understand what major events have happened. Major events in the sense, lots of events keep happening, right? War is happening, for instance, between Russia and Ukraine. Anything new happened over there? India is doing so many things, right? We are launching so many things, right? Olympics have happened, right? So that information which is spreading across, and for that you don't have to sit and prepare. That kind of information, if you can gather, that will help you in solving. And when it comes to static GK also, where have 8 questions in static GK also, we are not asking very difficult questions. General awareness of about geography, general awareness of about politics, right? Or something related to the geopolitics, general awareness, right? Not that you have to dig deep key, and we don't want to get into, for instance, modern history or medieval history or ancient history. That is not the goal, right? Our idea is that you need to know, like for instance, if it comes to India, we all should know India is the 7th largest country when it comes to area. On the world map it looks so small, but actually it is the 7th largest country in the world when it comes to area. So this we should know, right? Otherwise we look at a map and we feel like India is so small and other countries are so huge. It is because when you spread a map on a sheet of countries in the north, they expand, right? And those which are on the lower side, they shrink. That has happened to a country like India. That's why it looks so small. So we should know these little things. If we know these little things, obviously that is what we are expecting.
So given that, do you have any closing remarks for our students for that?
So the closing remark would be, please don't get worried. Whatever you're preparing for other exams can very smartly get translated into what we are expecting. Whenever you are preparing for decision making, my suggestion would be go through our question papers of previous years and try to understand what is what is the person who has created question paper is expecting from you, right? You have to understand what they are asking when it comes to verbal ability, or when it comes to QT. Verbal ability, for that you need to focus on interpretation. For quantitative aptitude, you have to understand how this particular thing can be applied. Less number of formula based questions we ask, so application becomes more important. And try to understand what are they trying to ask. Don't jump on what you want to say. Try to understand what they are asking. So sometimes you will get disappointed also, because but they are not asking that, they are asking something else. So that is what you have to pick, right? So translate that understanding of your preparation from other exams to this decision making. Solve previous year's question papers, that will help. And at the same time, keep yourself relaxed. General knowledge is just general awareness. Keep your ears and eyes open, it will help you. Don't get worried, don't develop anxiety. It's an exam to enjoy, because one of the objectives of XAT is that when you take an exam, you should learn. We very smartly pick our passages so that there is some learning. Even if you take the exam, there should be some learning. So this exam is to enjoy, not to give you stress, right? And keep your fingers crossed. You never know where things will take you. So, and stay hopeful and confident. The only, I guess this is my personal view, the the thing which can help you survive in any situation is your confidence. So keep doing things which can help you in building your confidence. If you are aware, don't look at others, don't compare yourself with others, don't look at other people's mock test scores and then compare. No, whatever you are good at, you stick to that. Don't change your plan. Be aware of your strengths and enhance your confidence. You will do wonders. All the
Yeah,
best.
very rightly said, sir. Thank you so much for joining in us this evening, and all the best for that. And hopefully, we'll have a very fun exam this year also.
Thank you, Shikant, and thank you to all the candidates. All the best.
Thank you so much.